Well, I want to welcome you guys. If this is your first time to Abundant Life, welcome. We have, I put it there so I wouldn't forget. But we have these awesome Connect cards. So if this is your first time, we'd love for you to fill one of these out so we can get to know you and just let you know what's going on in future dates. And for all of you that are online, welcome. Thank you for your faithfulness and being with us. And I know that we're full this morning, so we have actually a lot of people next door. So hello to you guys over there. We love you, and thank you for being with us this morning. Hey, I want to just thank my lovely wife. She's not in here, but for speaking last week. Man, that was a treat. Yeah, you guys are like, she can come back. You know you're being taught by a Sunday school teacher when all of her points are musical like lines in a Sunday school song. This little light of mine, point 1. All around the world, we're going to let it shine, point 2. We're not going to hide our light, point 3. Don't let the enemy blow it out, point 4. Did she make you sing? Yeah, I thought she did. I couldn't hear you because I was watching it online, but yeah, she definitely sang. I will not sing this morning. But while she was down here having fun and teaching, I was upstairs teaching the kids. Man, I love Sunday school teaching. I love being up there and just pouring into these young kids. It's great when you teach young kids because you see the light bulb click. Right? Isn't that awesome when you're trying to tell somebody something and you see that light bulb just go dunk, and like they get it? They're like, oh yeah. Like adults, you tell them something that they've never heard before and they go, oh yeah, that's interesting. Kids are like, wow, that's awesome. And so I love teaching kids. And last week we started the fruits of the Spirit. And Rachel made me skip over love, so she wants to do that one. So I got to start with joy. And it was awesome because I took a lemon and we talked about how like joy is like a lemon. It's bright, it's yellow like some of your stickers. It reminds me of summer. You cut that open, you squeeze it, and you have an awesome pool beverage, right? Lemonade. But it takes one ingredient, and that it's sugar. Without sugar, it's just lemon juice, and it's sour. And sometimes we have things in our life that causes us to be sour, causes us to be bitter. And we don't want to be bitter, we want to be better. And it only takes one ingredient, and that's the Spirit of God. And the fruit of having God in our life is joy, happiness. And so it was fun. It was really fun. I told them a joke. I don't know if you guys will get it, but I pulled out from my dad jokes, and I just said, hey, guys, tell me, why didn't the lemon get across to the other side of the road? And they're like, I don't know. And I said, because it ran out of juice. Duh. Put that one in your book and you tell it later. So yeah, we had a wonderful time. And so I got to get out of Sunday school mode and back into preaching mode. But we're going to continue our series, our freedom series. This morning I want to talk to you guys about one of the hardest things you'll ever have to do. As a Christian, one of the hardest things you will ever have to do in your life. You want to know what it is? Waiting. Some of you guys were like freaking out, like, he's lost his mind. What's going on? He has a blank stare. No, waiting. Waiting is one of the hardest things we will ever have to do in our life. And as a Christian, waiting on God is so hard sometimes. Waiting on his timing. Waiting for his will to be accomplished. Waiting is hard because it takes you out of the driver's seat and it puts God in there. God, you're in charge. And so we're just waiting on you, Lord. And so that's why oh, by the way, if you're wondering, what is that ball? How many of you guys have a Mac computer? You know what that is. That's the spinning ball of death. So when you see that little thing spinning, you're waiting. You're waiting. Some other computers have different things, but when that starts to spin, you're not moving on until it says you're ready to move on. So waiting. And so that's the title of my message this morning is Freedom in Waiting. There's freedom in waiting. There's peace in waiting when you know who you're waiting on. When you know what you're waiting for. And so that's kind of what we're going to be talking about this morning. How many of you guys have ever had to wait on something before? Everybody's hand can go up because we've all waited on something. We've waited in lines at the grocery store. We've waited in traffic. If you're a commuter, God bless you. You've waited in traffic. And I feel so bad for you because I hate waiting in traffic. We wait to be seated at a restaurant. My family, we love Olive Garden. And there's times you go there and the line's outside the door. You're like, ooh, all right, we'll just see, because you have to see if it's worth the wait. Right? So you go in there, you're like, table for 5, and you're just like, oh, be under 40 minutes. And they're like 25 to 30-minute wait. We're like, sign us up, because it's worth the wait. 30 minutes, tops, at Olive Garden. Anything more than that, no, we're going to go to Burger King across the street, right? Because I'm not waiting 45 minutes. This last Valentine's Day, did you guys all do something special with your family, with your wife, girlfriend, whatever? I took my family to Monterey because I love, we went surfing, we rode bikes, but I was really excited for dinner. I mean, this is what I was looking forward to, because I love going to the wharf and eating at Fisherman's Grotto. And so I'm like ready. We rode bikes all day, and now we're starving. So we get to the wharf on Valentine's Day, and I get there and I say, table for 5. And the guy looks at me and says, okay, that'll be about a 2.5, 3-hour wait. And I'm like, not worth the wait. You go to the next one, you're like, table for 5, 2-hour wait. Table for 5, 2-hour wait. 2.5-hour wait. 3-hour wait. I was like, all right, there's McDonald's across the street. I love my family, but we're going to do something else because we're not waiting that long. We don't like to wait, but we wait all the time. We wait for our Amazon packages to arrive. We wait at the doctor's office. Some of you waited for your wives to get ready for church this morning. I can say that. I didn't. My wife's upstairs. She can't hear me. Some of you are waiting for this message to get over so you can go to lunch. You're thinking in your mind right now, what are we going to have for lunch? He needs to hurry up. He's not staying on points. But we wait all the time. And this is what we know about waiting. We hate to wait. We hate to wait. We don't enjoy it. We don't like it. We live in a I want it right now society, and it causes people to be impatient. The other day, my son Jackson wanted a toy, and he's 10, so he doesn't have a job, so he relies on me to buy him stuff. And so I told him, I said, if you want this toy, it wasn't very expensive, it was $10, it was on Amazon. I said, if you want this, you got to do some chores around the house. I gave him a big old long list, take him about an hour and a half to get it done. He says, okay, Dad, I'll do it. So he went around and he did everything on the list. I went, checked it. It was awesome. He did a great job for a 10-year-old, which he typically doesn't do a good job, but he really wanted this toy. So we sat down and we ordered this toy, and it was on Amazon Prime, so it was free shipping, and it was going to be here quickly. So a 1 to 2 day delivery. And so he's all excited. We bought it, and then, I don't know, like 3 hours later, he comes. He's like, Dad, is my toy here? And I think in his mind, he thinks he's just going to someone's going to go to the store, take it off the shelf, run to our house, put it, your package is here, and then run off. And I just had to explain, that's not how it works, son. You have to wait. He said, but it said 1 to 2 days. And I said, the 1 day isn't today. It starts tomorrow. And he was so deflated. He was like, so I think all he heard was tomorrow, because I woke him up to go to school the next morning, and I said, all right, guys, time to get up. And he jumps out of bed with this huge smile on his face, and he says, Dad, is my package here? Is my toy here? And I'm like, it's 6:45. It is not. It is not. Can you check to see check the tracking? I don't know how kids know about tracking. Can you track it? Track it. And I'm like, all right. And I'm like, all right, fine. It hasn't been delivered yet. I don't know when it may be tomorrow. And he was so sad. Why? Because he wants it now. We want things right now. We all want good things in our life, but we don't want to wait for them. We want it now. You see, when things don't happen as fast as we want them to happen, we're tempted to ask this question: when? When? God, when? When, God? When will I meet that perfect person? When will my career get off the ground? When will I catch a break? Gosh, God, I just need a break. When? When will this season end? My son, Zacharias, constantly asks me, Dad, when is this coronavirus season going to end? Dad, when can we throw these stupid masks away? Dad, when can I go back to school? Dad, when can I start football? When? When? We ask when. Like I have the answers to that. I don't know. Soon. That's what we say. Soon. Just be ready, because it's going to be soon. But I don't know. When? Did you know that David, King David, he had to wait 15 years from when the prophet Samuel anointed him with oil and said, the Lord says, you're going to be the next king of Israel. 15 years from that anointing until he sat on the throne over Israel. He had to wait 15 years, and a lot happened in that time span, right? Abraham had to wait 25 years from when God pulled him out of the tent and said, look to the stars. Can you count them all? Nope. Can you? He's like, so shall your offspring be. You're going to be a father of many nations. From that promise to the point he had his first son, Isaac, 25 years he had to wait. You ever think, like, if he had any questions, like, God, when? When, God? Moses waited 40 years before he saw what God was talking about when it came to the promise. 40 years. He wandered, not knowing. Noah, you know how long Noah waited? 120 years. 120 years from when God said, I'm going to judge the world by a flood, until he saw the first drop from heaven. What's really cool about Noah is that God told him to do something that he didn't understand. He says, it's going to rain from heaven. And Noah's like, what's rain? Up to that point, it had never rained before. The water came from the ground. The dew from the ground. It had never rained. That's why there had never been a rainbow. That's when God promised the rainbow, is after the first rain. So he's saying that there's going to be a rain from heaven. And Noah's like, okay, well, what does that mean? And he says, I want you to build a boat in the middle of the desert? Like, what for? I want it to be this big. Why? And then he starts because he's obedient and he's doing what God is calling him to do. And he's working. He's not just sitting around just waiting for God to do something. He's working. Year after year, he's probably thinking, what is rain? What is he talking about? And he may have questioned it a few times, because 120 years is something that you can't wrap your head around. We don't even live that long, but he worked that long and waited that long for a promise from God that he was going to restore the world through him, through his family. And he was going to judge the world. Oh, man, the people that must have come up to Noah, like, what are you doing? Why are you wasting your time? Who cares what God said? This is not going to happen. I know that God may have promised you this, but don't hold your breath. It's been 100 years. Like, how many more years, Noah, are you gonna waste on this? Well, until it comes true. That's how long. If it's 101 or 120, I'm going to keep going because that's what God said. Jesus waited. The Messiah waited 30 years. You ever wonder why Jesus didn't start his ministry until he was 30? Because he wasn't allowed to. He wasn't allowed to he wasn't allowed to teach until he was 30 because it was against the Jewish law. He wasn't allowed to. The Son of God had to wait 30 years before he can do what he came to the earth to do. But did he just sit around? No, he was in the temple. He was listening. He was learning. He was growing. He was growing in favor. He was becoming wiser and wiser, and he was waiting. So many people think waiting means just sitting and doing nothing. But I don't know very many people that when God tells them to wait, to not do anything, I always see them doing something. Joseph waited 13 years from when God gave him his first dream to when that dream became a reality. And he had no idea what that dream even meant. I guess what I'm saying this morning is if God is making you wait, there's two things you need to know. One, you're in good company. And two, if God is calling you to wait, it's always worth the wait. If God's calling you to wait, it's always worth the wait. So many people spend such a huge part of their lives being impatient, frustrated, and disappointed because there's just things that they don't understand. You guys ever try to figure out stuff? I just don't understand what's happening. No, I don't know what you're doing. God, what are you doing? Sometimes God has to teach us to leave things alone and to quit feeling like we have to know everything. You have to just stop. God wants us to walk by discernment. That's a revelation knowledge, a God knowledge, and not a head knowledge. He wants us to get our knowledge from him. Sometimes we just spin our wheels trying to figure out how to work things out, and God's just like, hey, I have the answer. You need something this morning? You lost this morning? You searching this morning? I got something for you. But you can keep looking. You can keep working. You can keep trying to figure out. Or you can just, hey, Dad, I have a question. And he'll give you a revelation knowledge. It's difficult to walk in discernment when you're always trying to figure things out. But when you can say, Lord, I can't figure this one out. I need you to reveal it to me. I need you to show me what you're talking about in this. I need you to give me a revelation in this. That's when we can have peace in spite of not knowing. Trusting God's timing often requires us not knowing how God's going to accomplish what needs to be done. And hear this, and not knowing when he's going to do it. Not knowing how he's going to do it, and not knowing when he's going to do it. We often say God's never late, but typically God's never early either. He's never late, but he's never early. He's always on time, right? Because God uses seasons of waiting in our lives to stretch our faith and to bring growth in our life. If you're in a season of waiting, can I tell you, I'm in a season of waiting right now. I hate this message, you guys. This is, you know what I mean? There's messages where you just I'm like, oh, I got this. I could preach this all day long to anybody. This one I don't like, okay? Because I'm in a season of waiting. And maybe you are too. Maybe you've been waiting for something, waiting for a promise, waiting for something to happen, waiting. And you're like, Lord, I don't understand and I don't get what you're doing, but I'm going to wait because I know that it's stretching my faith and it's bringing growth. We don't like to grow because it hurts, right? Anything that grows stretches and it hurts. There's three things I want to quickly look at this morning that waiting helps us do. The first one is waiting on God. It reminds me that God is in control. God is in control. Sometimes people ask, but what do I do while I'm waiting? Yes, okay, we have seasons when we're waiting on God, waiting for his timing. Well, what do we do when he's waiting? Well, that's a good question. During those times of waiting, we have to take an active role as a watchman. We have to take an active role as a watchman. In Psalms chapter 130, verse 5 through 6, this is what it says. I wait for the Lord. My soul waits. I wait and I put my hope in his word. I wait for the Lord more than a watchman for the morning. More than a watchman for the morning. What's a watchman? If you were ever in the military, any branch, you have sentry duty. Watchmen. In biblical times, a watchman guarded the city. They watched for enemies who might attack during the night, and they waited for the sun to come up. They worked through the night. They waited. They were alert. They were obedient. They were ready to respond whenever needed. And when they were called upon, they were ready in a moment's notice to spring into action. That's what a watchman does. They are just waiting for the sun to come up, and while they're waiting, they're obedient. They're ready to jump in that. They're ready to move. They're ready to take action. They're ready to do whatever needs to be done, but they're waiting and they're ready. But on the other hand, a watchman doesn't make things happen. They don't control the rising of the sun. They can't speed up the process of the dawning of a new day. Their job is literally to wait. You see, they know the difference between their job and God's job. They are just ready. They're waiting with anticipation for when God moves, they're ready to move. They can't make the sun rise, but they can be ready for when it does. The second thing that waiting helps us do it is that waiting helps us, it reminds me that I'm not God. And that might be good news to some of you guys. It's good news to me. I'm not God. I have to remind myself, I'm not God. I'm not God. Because as a guy, I like to fix things. I want to fix stuff. I like to fix problems. I like to fix relationships. You got a relationship problem? Come to me. I'll help you fix it out. Let's lay it out. Let's move some chess pieces around. We'll figure it out together. I love to fix things. I love to fix conflicts. I want to fix my career. I want to fix my church. I want to fix my everything. We just want to fix. But fixing and controlling situations and people is like trying to speed up the sun. It's like trying to speed up the rising of the sun. I can't. You know why? Because it's not my job. My job is to be a watchman. I need to have a watchman's attitude, a confident and alert expectation that God is going to do what God says he's going to do. And when he does it, to be ready for it. I'm ready. Lord, I know this is what you promised. Noah was ready. He did what he was supposed to do, what he was called to do. While he was waiting, he was supposed to build a boat. So when God came through and said, here comes the rain, he was ready. He wasn't caught off like, oh, wait, you were serious about the... Give me some... I need a little more time. No, because your job was to work while you waited, to be ready for when God said, now go, now move. But don't move before he calls you to move. You have to wait. To be expecting. Even when we don't see anything happening. Even when it doesn't make sense. Have you ever heard of a Chinese bamboo tree? Anybody? I didn't either. Like, I don't know. I looked this up. I came across it a couple weeks ago, and I'm like, I got to use this. This is kind of cool. A Chinese bamboo tree. So it's one of the most remarkable plants on the planet, because what happens is when the gardener plants the seed of this tree, he has to fertilize it. He has to prepare the ground, like any other plant, and he has to water it every day. Every day he has to come out and he has to water this plant. And next day, he's watering the plant. I don't know why we don't water like that, right? It's weird. Yeah. We water. Every day you're watering this plant. And Jessica. You water this plant for 5 years. And nothing happens. There's no growth. There's no evidence of anything happening. But here's what's really cool. After 5 years, the Chinese bamboo tree will grow 90 feet in 90 days. So the question you have to ask yourself, did this tree grow in the first 5 years, or did this tree grow in the last 90 days? Did it grow in the first 5 years or the last 90 days? Because for 5 years, you're watering this mud hole with no evidence that anything's happening. The answer is obvious. 5 years. The growth happened in the first 5 years, because if the gardener had stopped watering, if the gardener had stopped fertilizing, if the gardener had stopped tending to this tree, to this dream, to this promise, the tree would die in the ground without anything ever happening if you stop before you were supposed to. Sometimes we feel stupid watering something for so long with no proof that anything's growing. We sometimes even feel silly for believing in something for so long or having faith in something for so long with no evidence that anything's happening. Some of you guys have been given a promise and you're just waiting and you just feel like, Lord, are you sure? Because what you've said and what I see don't really seem to line up. Are you sure? And some people will quit. Some people will say, this is a dumb dream. This is stupid. I've waited way too long. I'm not going to wait anymore. Nothing's coming out of this. Nothing's happening. And they stop watering on the 4th year because they don't see results. They don't see anything happening right now. And so they give up on their dreams. They give up on the promise that God has given them. We give up so easily sometimes, but we have to keep watering. You have to keep believing. You have to keep trusting and having faith because the answer lies in the unseen part of the tree. The real growth is in the waiting. The real growth is in the first 5 years for this bamboo tree, even with no evidence of anything growing, because it's growing a root system large enough to support the 90-foot stalk. So sometimes God's working in us, and we don't see what he's doing, but we have to believe anyways that, God, you're working in me, that I may not understand what, but I believe that it's going to support what you're calling me to do. Noah's building this boat. For what reason? I don't know. Maybe because God has promised something to protect him, his family, and to use his family to save the world. Perhaps maybe it may look dumb on the outside and people may criticize you like, why do you believe in that? Why are you standing for that? Why are you trusting that? Why are you, putting so much time and money and energy into that? Well, because God's promised me this. And I'm going to keep watering this until what's happening on the inside will start to show on the outside. Because it always starts on the inside of us. Always starts on the inside. Genesis chapter 37 through 50 tells us the story of Joseph. How many of you guys know the story of Joseph? The colorful jacket? The son of Jacob. God blessed Joseph so richly, used him so powerfully. But only after he was sold into slavery, only after he was thrown into prison, and only after he waited 13 years. The Bible gives us so many examples of people who had to wait on God, but Joseph's probably the most like you and I. Joseph's probably most like you and I because he didn't have a specific promise from God concerning his future. Abraham had to wait 25 years to have kids, but God promised him kids. David had to wait 15 years to become king, but God promised him that he was going to be king. They both had very clear and specific promises from God, but about their future and what it was going to look like. For them, it was a matter of believing what God said. God says, I was going to do this. I'm going to do this. You either believe it or you don't believe it. That's just a matter of fact. But that kind of concrete word from God concerning future events is extremely rare. The Bible gives us so many promises about God's goodness, about his love, his faithfulness towards us in general. And we should hold on to those promises and trust that he does cause all things to work together for our good. He does. He promises you a future. He doesn't say what your future is going to look like, but he promises you a future to give you hope. He promises that all things will work together for your good. There's those kind of promises. But I'm going to tell you that I've never sat down on the couch with God, and God's never said, Kevin, with his arm around me, I'm going to do this and that for your future. I'm going to do this for you because I love you, son. So just get ready. Hold on. You're going to wait, but it's coming. I promise, because I'm going to do this. I've never sat down with God, and God's never physically spoken to me. This is what I'm going to do. There's promises that I hold on to. There's things that God has promised me that I believe, but I've never just sat down with God. God never told Joseph that he was going to become the second most powerful man in Egypt. God never told Joseph that he was going to save an entire region from famine. Joseph had no idea while he was suffering in prison that he was perfectly situated for God's amazing purpose in his life. No idea. And yet, he was exactly where God wanted him to be. He was sold into slavery by his brothers. He landed in prison because of false accusation of rape. For 13 years, things went from bad to worse for Joseph. And there was no assurance from God that the direction of his life was going to change. There's no assurance that Joseph's life was going to change. He was in prison for raping somebody, which didn't happen. Lord, is this the dream that you had for me? Is this what you meant? Sure, we know things turned out good for him, but only after he had to wait for such a long time. It's in those times of waiting, in those seasons of waiting, it's easy to feel angry and betrayed. And sometimes we lose hope and give up. Some of us even may feel rejected by God. I try to serve. I try to honor God. I try to do this, but I just feel like sometimes he doesn't want me. And when things aren't working out, when God seems silent, when life is at a standstill and every path seems like the wrong one, what do? When you just feel like nothing's going right. I've heard so many people, nothing's going right in my life. When you feel like that, what do? You may not have foreseen your current circumstances or where you're at, but God did. God did. He wasn't surprised about what you were going to face and what you're going through now. He wasn't disappointed. And he doesn't need a plan B because you're in a bad spot right now. God's plan A is working just fine, but you have to wait. You don't need a plan B. And as unthinkable as it may seem to you right now, you are exactly where God has placed you. Okay. As unthinkable as it may seem, you are exactly where God has placed you. Joseph wasn't in Egypt by choice. It wasn't his choice to be sold into slavery. It wasn't his choice to be accused of rape and thrown into prison. It wasn't his choice to wait all those years. But the diligence and excellence he displayed in those times of waiting ended up being critical for his life and for the lives of so many other people. How he acted and what he did during those times of waiting. It all comes down to what you do while you're waiting. As a slave, Joseph worked hard. He honored God. He didn't sit around complaining about what he had to face and what he was going through. He didn't just like, oh man, this sucks. Life sucks. It's not fair. It's not fair I didn't do anything to deserve this. He didn't do that. You know what he did? He honored God. He worked while he waited for what God promised him. And he didn't know what it was, but he knew that God was calling him to something great. So he just worked and he honored and he was faithful to God. And because of that, in Genesis chapter 39, verses 2-6, the Lord was with Joseph so that he prospered. And he lived in the house of an Egyptian master. When his master saw that the Lord was with him and that the Lord gave him success in everything that he did, Joseph found favor in his eyes and became his attendant. Potiphar put him in charge of his household, and he entrusted to his care everything he owned. From the time he put him in charge of his household and all that he owned, the Lord blessed the household of the Egyptian because of Joseph. The blessing of the Lord was on everything Potiphar had, both in-house and in the field. So Potiphar left everything he had in Joseph's care. With Joseph in charge, he did not concern himself with anything except for the stuff that he ate. He was faithful to God, and he was honored on earth. God had a plan. Even though he was a slave, the Lord showed him favor because he was faithful. He worked hard. While he waited for the plan of God to be revealed, he worked, and he honored God. We have to honor God in the way we live our life. But how was he treated? What did he get in return? He was accused of rape. Man, what a bummer. He was thrown in prison. And for most of us, that's our breaking point. That's it. We lived our life for God, and this is what happened, and so we're going to stop. This is nonsense. I've given up so much for you, Lord, and this is where I'm at now. This is where it got me. This is what it got me. Me surrendering, me serving you, me coming to church so faithfully, me giving, me. And this is where I'm at, so I don't need you anymore. I think I might be better off on my own. That's the opposite of what Joseph did. In fact, Joseph continued to honor God, even in prison. And when he was in prison, he was highly favored by God, even in the next season of waiting. You know, seasons of waiting's hard. Seasons of waiting, back-to-back seasons of waiting, even harder. When you're like, all right, when is this going to end? And then you're like, you jump right into a different season of waiting. You're like, oh, God, you got to be kidding me. But in Genesis 39, verse 20, we're wrapping up. While Joseph was there in prison, the Lord was with him. He showed him kindness and granted him favor in the eyes of the prison warden. So the warden put Joseph in charge of all that he had in the prison. He was made responsible for all that was done there. The warden paid no attention to anything under Joseph's care because the Lord was with Joseph and gave him success in whatever he did. Because he honored God. Because he was faithful to God. No matter where he was, no matter what his circumstance was, no matter what he was seeing right now in front of him, and it may not have been nothing, because it wasn't nothing. Lord, where's my future? Is this my future in prison? But here's the good news. If you're suffering this morning, here's the good news. If you're in the middle of a circumstance that makes you feel like maybe God's forgotten you, take heart, because you're in the hands of a loving God. You're in the hands of a loving God. And even though you can't see right now how he's going to redeem this period of your life, he's going to use this period of your life to make you more like his son, Jesus. He's going to use this time of waiting to strengthen you. Even though you might be in a season of waiting, he's using it to bring you strength. For I consider that my suffering in this present time are not worthy to be compared to the glory that is to be revealed to us. Romans 8:18 tells us. No matter what you're going through right now, when you stand before God, none of it is going to matter. I hear a lot of people say, well, when I get to heaven, I'm going to ask God, why did you let that happen to me? Why did I? No, you won't. No, you won't. Because nothing is going to even matter when you're in the presence of God. The glory of God is going to just cover everything. You won't care. What you're going through right now is but for a season. Because when we're before God, it's for eternity. Most of us need to grow in this area of trusting God instead of focusing on the question, when? When, God? When? When will this be over? Let me tell you that this morning, if you're missing joy in your life, if you're missing peace in your life, you're probably not trusting God. If your mind's constantly worn out because you're trying to fix, you're trying to come up with, you're probably not trusting God. When you're just tired, mentally tired, it's because there's a good chance that you're just not trusting God with it. The last point, and this is a quick conclusion, waiting on God increases our strength. Waiting on God. I love the song that we sang this morning. Wait upon the Lord. Strength will rise as we wait upon the Lord. Wait. I broke my promise in 1 week. 1 week. I already showed you that I was unfaithful. I told you that I wouldn't sing ever, and there it was. I just sang. I'm trying to make the worship team, and if I get the opportunities, I might just throw it out there. But waiting on God increases our strength, you guys. It doesn't cause us to be weak. It doesn't cause us to be lost. It causes us to be strong. Sometimes we struggle to remember that it's good to wait on the Lord. It isn't easy. It goes against the grain of our quick fix society. It's not easy. It's good. Good things aren't always easy. There's also a hidden benefit into waiting. The times of waiting our soul is revived and our spirit's renewed. Isaiah wrote in Isaiah 40:31, but those who trust in the Lord. In other translations it says, and those who wait on the Lord will renew their strength. They will soar on wings like eagles. They will run and not grow weary. They will walk and not faint. The time will come when those who wait on the Lord will soar. You'll soar above your problems. You'll soar above your circumstances. God will lift you up above the things you're going through when we trust in him. And you and I in this church will catch the gust of the Spirit when it comes, and we will soar on wings like eagles. It was that same gust of the Spirit that the disciples in Jerusalem were instructed to wait on. Go into this room and wait. You wait. And when the Spirit of God comes, you will know it. When it comes, it's going to lift you up and you're going to soar. And that's the gust of the Spirit that we're waiting for today. When the Spirit of God moves and it comes and God does what he says he's going to do, we're going to mount up on wings and we're going to fly. No matter what you're dealing with, you're going to be above it because you're with the God of heaven. He's going to get you through it. But the key is waiting on the Lord. The key is waiting. Those who wait upon the Lord will renew their strength. Will you bow your heads with me? Lord, we thank you. We love you, Jesus. Lord, I don't know if there's someone here this morning who's been waiting. They're in a season of waiting. Lord, I just pray right now that you just let them know your waiting is going to be worth it. Because sometimes we can get discouraged. We can lose heart when there's no evidence of what we're waiting for. That's faith. That's believing in things we don't yet see or even understand. But we're going to believe. Because you're trustworthy, Lord. You've never let us down. And we know that those who wait on the Lord will renew their strength. So, Lord, I just pray for the weak this morning. Lord, I'm weak without you. And so I call on you this morning and I say, Lord, I need you to renew my strength in the things that I'm waiting for, the things that I'm trusting you for, the things that I don't understand yet, but Lord, I pray for that revelation knowledge. I don't want to try to figure it out. I just want to trust you. Let it be that easy. We do trust you, Lord. And because we trust you, we will wait. And for those of you waiting this morning for God to do something in your life, to do something in your family's life, maybe you've been praying for a child to come to the Lord, it's going to be worth the wait. Maybe you've been waiting for a career opportunity. You've been waiting for something that will help support your family. Oh, God has the right thing for you. It's going to be worth the wait. If you're single and you've been like, Lord, I don't want to be single. I want to share my life with someone. It's going to be worth the wait. Don't force it. Don't try to make something happen out of nothing. That's only God's job. Our job is to be a watchman, to be ready for when God says, that's the one. That's the job. That's the person. That's the opportunity that you've been waiting for. Now go. Spring into action. Watchmen. Spring into action. Lord, may our hearts be ready to spring into action when you call us. Let us not be caught unaware. Let us not be caught unexpected. Cause us to be aware and ready to move when you say go. We thank you, Jesus, in your name. Amen. Amen. God bless you. Love you. Enjoy your day. I'm sorry that you lost an hour. Go take a nap. But you get an extra hour of sunlight, which is amazing. So have a wonderful week. We'll see you guys later.